Charlottesville police chief just dropped unbelievable bombshell that destroys left's narrative. While MSM has spent the last 4 days trying to spin a narrative that only the alt-right was to blame for the fiasco in Charlottesville that left 1 dead and many injured, they seem to be slipping on the long trail of facts and truth that is finally coming out. Even officials, that at one time appeared quite happy to let people believe the twisted reports that were coming out left and right, are now setting the record straight. No one is disputing that there was violence that was beyond necessary or acceptable from both sides, and it is refreshing to see that many are finally willing to admit that the right had the permit and the left started the violence. According to Daily Wire. On Monday, Charlottesville Police Chief Al Thomas held a press conference at which he addressed the incidents that occurred over the weekend during the alt-right protest. Thomas noted that around 10 o'clock, the #Unite the Right attendees began arriving and entering Emancipation Park. We had a plan to bring them in at the rear of the park. They had agreed to cooperate with the plan. Unfortunately, they did not follow the plan. They began entering at different locations in and around the park, and we had to quickly alter our plans to help facilitate that process. He continued, mentioning other groups. Other groups also began amassing along the street and in the park. Gradually, the crowd sizes increased along with aggressiveness and hostility of attendees toward one another. Shortly before 11 a.m., individuals in the crowd began throwing objects and spraying chemical agents into the crowd. The city and county then made a declaration of local emergency. The crowd size became increasingly violent, with mutually engaged combatants, with one-on-one attacks following. When a reporter asked, "Do you believe that one side was more responsible than the other for instigating the violence?" Thomas replied, "This was an alt-right rally." The reporter pressed further, "Do you believe that they're the ones who instigated the fighting?" Thomas answered, "We did have mutually combating individuals in the crowd." It seems utterly ridiculous to have to say this, but the alt-right weren't the only violent individuals at the Saturday rally. However, suggestions to the contrary have been harshly condemned. As the Daily Wire's James Barrett reported, when New York Times reporter, Cheryl Gay Stolberg, tweeted that the hard left seemed as hate-filled as alt-right. "I saw club-wielding Antifa beating white nationalists being let out of the park," she was strongly rebuked. Stolberg backed off, correcting herself in a subsequent tweet, rethinking this. "Should have said violent, not hate-filled." They were standing up to hate. Still, this was not enough. Those criticizing Stolberg are guilty of the false dilemma argumentative fallacy. In their binary thinking, because the alt-right is hateful and violent, any who oppose them must be loving and non-violent. Acknowledging the violent behavior of the leftist extremists somehow either nullifies one's recognition of the violent behavior of the alt-right, including the terrorist actions of James Alex Fields Jr., or places it on an equal plane. This, of course, is ludicrous. Human beings have the capacity to recognize and admonish different levels of brutality while understanding their ranking on the scale of grotesque behaviors. This is not a false equivalency, it's an intellectually honest assessment. What happened in Charlottesville should never have occurred, and it only succeeded in setting off a chain reaction nationwide for Antifa punks and BLM radicals to start destroying historical artifacts on a mass scale. There has to be something big done to these entitled brats and misinformed ingrates before the entire country is set aflame. The law provides many ways to stop it, but at this point in time it appears that local law isn't willing to do what is necessary to stop this madness. Maybe it is time for the military to pull some martial law out, and then we can see if both sides will calm the hell down long enough to take a long hard look at the damage they have caused in the name of their own made-up activism. That seems to be what it is coming to, and that seems to be the only thing that may shut this down before an all-out war in the streets of America is too far gone to stop. Thank you for watching this video. What do you think about this? Share this on Facebook and Twitter along with your comments.